What up? What up? What up? Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Scorecard, the boxing scorecard, where I ask people to come with your scorecard and an explanation, not just your opinion. Last night, we had the big unification at 135, at 135 pounds between Devin Haney and George Kambosos. A lot of hype coming up to this fight right here. We'll show the tail of the tape in a second here. You'll see both guys, their ages and weights and their records. Here we go. Haney, Kambosos from Australia, Haney from the USA. Kambosos, 28 years old, in the prime of his career, physical and mental. Haney still young, only at 23 years old. Just a quick reminder, Canelo was 22 when he fought Mayweather. Haney is doing some big things at just 23 years old right now. Both guys were undefeated coming into this match right here, and Haney had a little bit of the reach advantage. Um, again, so this fight, this show is called the Scorecard. The last night there was no need to the score, to score the fight with last night because it was a complete shutout victory for Mr. Haney. My prediction before the fight was a unanimous decision for Devin Haney. The only thing that I got wrong is that I thought George would actually put up more of a fight, judging by his performance against Teofimo Lopez, who had a big win against who defeated Vasily Lomachenko, who everyone thought was untouchable. Lopez beat him unanimous, and George Kambosos beat Lopez pretty convincingly. I think it was a split decision, but it was pretty convincingly that Kambosos took the titles from Lopez. So, judging by that victory, Kambosos also has other good victories against former veterans, Mikey Bay. So I was expecting the Greek guy that lives in Australia to put up a better fight, but Haney just a complete shutout. I mean, I'll go every round. The score was 120 to 108, so it couldn't be more perfect scorecard for Haney. And it was really the educated jab that kept him off of him. And after the fight, you can see Kambosos' face was really marked up, but it wasn't like, Haney landed a few right hands and a few other punches, but it was really the jab, the educated jab. What I mean by educated jab is that it's not just simply standing up and just throwing it randomly. Sometimes he would throw it hard. Sometimes he would just flick it out there for speed. And George Kambosos couldn't time that. He was trying to counter punch it. Like Kambosos was trying to land the same punch, the overhand right that he landed on Lopez, but it was never there for him because Haney's jab was just so fast, getting in and out. And sometimes when he wouldn't make it fast, he would just make it hard enough to make George's head snap back, that by the time he was ready to come back, Haney was already gone. So the jab, 100%, the jab is the main thing, one of the only things that Haney needed in this fight. Just to go through each round real quick, round one, Haney educated jab. Cam obviously looking for the overhand right. Round two, Cam landed something. Yeah, that's the other thing too, because Cam landed, he might have landed one or two punches once in a while that made the crowd go wild, just because that was the only thing close to remotely landing something. So anytime Kambosos, threw a punch, the crowd was going crazy. So you got to be careful to not let the crowd influence your decisions when you're scoring the fight. Haney with that perfect jab. Round three, Haney already on cruise control, winning clearly, but you have to be careful. So I said, right going into the third round, you can see that Haney was already comfortable, like I said, on cruise control. Only problem is when you're on cruise control, just like if you're driving, on the 401 on cruise control, you can't just fall asleep. You can still get into an accident. So when you're on cruise control in the boxing ring, you still have to be on point. Like on cruise control just means that you can just feel yourself relaxed. You don't have to put as much energy into your efforts and what you're doing. But you still have to be careful. So that's what I wrote for round three. Round four, again, no close rounds. Round four, Cam losing. Haney still got to be careful. This is worse than I thought. Worse than I thought because, like I said, I was expecting Kambosos to put up more of a fight. Round five, Haney popping an up jab, popping up that jab. Fight is boring for some people. I'm gonna mention something specific about people that call fights like this boring. Something specific that I want to get out here. Here's a picture of that jab. Now this this specific picture right here, there was, it was right after the fight. So I didn't get it. There wasn't too much action pictures of Haney versus Kambosos. So this is not Kambosos, but I specifically wanted to add this picture in here so you can see how perfect Haney's jab is. Like this fight was against Jojo Diaz. Jojo Diaz has his hands up. He has his hands up properly, and Haney was still able to stick that jab in there. That's how perfectly educated this guy's jab is. Round 6. Right. See this. So it was so clear. I started making comments about other stuff. Round 6, I wrote 40,000 people in attendance, and it's quiet. It was up. It was I think actually it was close to 50,000 people. They said they had in that stadium in Australia, and it was quiet. That's quiet for the hometown guy. That's how you know when you're doing good if you're the guy from out of town. Round 7, the only significant punch that landed was a FU educated jab from Haney. This is extra unanimous. Round 8, Bradley really hoping for Cam. Yeah, that's the other thing. Tim Bradley, I don't know. He was really trying to hope keep Kambosos in the fight by saying, talking about what he could do or what he was trying to do, but it just was not working. Anything Cam was trying to do, you could just see the discouragement. Is that a word? Anyways, you can just see him get more discouraged as the fight was going on. Let me skip a couple rounds here because it was basically the same thing over and over again. Round 10, Cam trying to cheat, hold, and punch. That was the only thing he could do. He couldn't outbox him. So Devin Haney threw a jab. George grabbed his arm with one arm and tried to punch him with the other. That was only only thing that he was close to landing a punch. Round 11 and 12, I didn't even write any comments for that because it was just clear victory for Devin Haney. Now, what's next for both fighters? It's funny because when big fights happen, I think what a lot of people get is what we call or what is called recency bias. So like whoever is the last person that people remember, that's who they're gonna think it. So last night, Devin Haney looked flawless in his victory against Kambosos. So everyone's saying Devin's the man at 135. I don't see anybody beating him. Blah blah blah. And it is true. Me personally, the only person I see giving him trouble. Actually, no, there's a lot of sharks at between 135 and 130. So, but he's definitely at the top of them. Him and Shakur Stevenson, Tank, and then of course talking about recency bias. Last week, Tank was losing. Actually, like I said, he was losing that fight to Rolly, but just like 90% of his other fights, he came through and knocked him out at the end. So everyone's talking about Tank being the man at 135. A couple weeks before that, everyone was talking about Kambosos. Nobody was talking about Kambosos before he beat that Lopez. Before Lopez fight, nobody was talking about this guy George Kambosos. All right, he beat the man who beat the man, and so he felt that he was the man. And to a lot of the boxing community, they felt Kambosos was a big player. I don't know. I don't like to put guys on that pedestal just after one big victory. It was a big victory, but you gotta be a little bit more consistent before you get considered up there with the upper echelon guys. And then one more thing about the recency bias thing, even with Earl Spence and Crawford, and Spence was the last one to fight. He broke Ugas's face, so everyone's saying, yeah, Earl Spence. Right before that, Terrence Crawford was the only person to ever stop Sean Porter. The only person to stop Sean Porter. So everyone's like, so when that happened, everyone's like, yeah, Crawford over Spence. So recency bias. Anyways, back to this fight now. I want to go back, touch on something that people call fights like this boring. I don't, to be honest with you, I don't find them boring. Maybe if you're, to the crowd that wants to see, a street fight, it's boring. But I see it as a educated boxing lesson. And I want to give the example of baseball. Anybody that watches baseball out there, if a pitcher is in the middle of throwing, if a pitcher throws a shutout, A baseball inning is 9 rounds, right? If it's going into like the 6th or 7th round and the pitcher is throwing a no-hitter, they start to celebrate that. You look at the bottom of TSN or ESPN, they'll say at the bottom, so and so going into the 8th round pitching a no hitter. People celebrate that, but the same, even though there's no offense, because people, I want to see home runs, people on base, stolen bases, triples, doubles, and triples. There's none of that when someone's pitching a no hitter, right? It's just straight strikeout, 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 go sit down, go sit down. No one's getting on base, but people treat that like that's something exciting. So that's what I want to bring to boxing. I believe that when you're watching greatness, when you're watching a flawless performance from a boxer, I don't think we should be calling it boring. We should be embracing the flawlessness that you do not see that often, especially when it's two fighters at the top level. It's one thing if it's a mismatch, when it's a very good guy against someone that maybe probably shouldn't even been in there with him. But when it's two guys at the top 10, top 5, remember, Kambosos is the one that had all the belts going into this. Kambosos is the one that had all the belts. Sorry, Haney had 1 belt, and people called him an email champion because the only reason why he got that belt is because Lomachenko vacated it. That's a whole different other story, but a lot of people in the boxing community were not respecting Devin Haney's belt because that's a whole other story. Anyways, going into this fight, Kambosos had the major belts, and Devin Haney pitched a no-hitter. Devin Haney pitched a straight-up no-hitter for 9 rounds, for 12 rounds, I should say. And that should not be looked at as boring. It should be looked at as celebrated, as a flawless, educated boxing lesson. Those are things like that. If any coaches out there, when you want to show, if you're trying to teach your boxer, not just novice, but even the open class experienced boxers, how to properly use your jab. It's one thing to do it on pads. It's one thing to hit the bag and do a whole round just on jabs, and it's another thing to actually be able to execute an educated jab at the highest level against top competitors. And that's exactly what Devin Haney did last night. So much respect to him. What else do I got in my notes here? Oh yeah, there was a rematch clause in this fight. Even though there's obviously no need for a rematch, there is a rematch clause in the contract. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that goes. There is a possibility that Devin Haney's camp can ask Kambosos to take what is called step aside money. So basically, what that is we might, even though we might be already in a contract. Actually, I'm not sure. Obviously the contract stuff is a little bit icky, but it just basically, like, me and you could already be in a contract to fight, but if I see another bigger financial opportunity that I can take, I'll come to you and say, listen, I'll pay you this amount of money just to get out of the fight. And it might not be the whole amount that we were supposed to fight for, but it'll be a good chunk of it. Whatever. If it was for $5 million, maybe I'll give you $2 million, step aside money, so I can go take this fight over here and make some more money, and then probably come back later. So that might be the possibility, that they might offer Kambosos step aside money, so that they can get bigger fights. And like I said, at that 135-pound division, a lot of sharks from Tank to Stevenson. Well, Shakur Stevenson's at 130, but even someone. This is what anybody that loses at 135 should take on Ryan Garcia, because even though he's not really known in the past couple of years for his in-ring performances, this guy's more popular on social media than he is in the ring. It will still be a big fight for whoever it is. So for both guys, because Ryan Garcia needs a significant fight to get himself relevant at that 135-pound division. Right now, he's only relevant because of his social media. He has millions of followers on his Instagram or Twitter, but that doesn't really translate into in-ring performance, because you got all these people following you. But financially, it does help. So You know, that's what's keeping him afloat. That's what's keeping Ryan Garcia afloat at right now in boxing. What else? What else, man? I know it's still early, man. It's still too early for people in the chat. Usually I ask for people's scorecards, but like I said, last night was a shutout, so I'm assuming everyone had it like me. Actually, what I want to know, I think two of the judges had it 116 to 112. So that means they gave Kambosos 4 rounds. I would love to know which 4 rounds they were, or if anybody out there gave Kambosos any rounds. Please explain yourself, and you know, unless you're related to him or inside of his camp, you're really looking to give him 1 or 2 rounds. But I can't see. I don't know. I can't see it, and I really try to give both guys a fair shot, but I couldn't see it. Any questions? Any boxing questions about this fight or any other fights coming up? Come on, come on. I know it's early. I know there's a couple of people watching. Somebody asked me something. Um, while you're thinking of your question, boxing's in a good place right now, man. Boxing is in a very good place. We got, since the last while. Vinny Ali wants to know, who am I scoring next? You know what? I should know the next week's fight, but I don't. So whoever's the main event from next week, Vinny, can you do that for me real quick as I talk through, find out who's the main event for next week, and then we'll talk about that for a bit. Um, we have heard that Spence and Crawford are very close to finishing their, or solidifying their fight. Hopefully, it's going to be in October from what I hear, and that should be crazy. One thing I always hate when just being inside of the sport. I'm more inside of the sport than a spectator. So a lot of times, for the reason why I bring that up is because I want to say that I always hate it when two guys that I like have to fight each other. Even though they're the two best, we want to see who's the best. I hate when two guys I like have to fight each other. Oh yes. On Tuesday morning, Nonito Donaire is taking Inoue. That is a rematch from what both guys had a little while ago. Donaire's a little bit older, 39, 40 years old. But he just had a big win where he won a belt, one of the oldest guys to win a belt. So much respect to him. Inoue is a monster and is on most people's pound for pound list. So this is a very tough test for Mr. Donaire, who was on the pound for pound list about a decade ago himself, but still doing his thing. And that fight is on Tuesday morning, like at 5 a.m. in Japan. So the real diehard boxing fans are going to be up for that. Yes, I'll be up for that. So that, I'll be scoring that one. I'm not sure about live. Hopefully I can get a good, I can watch it. But anyway, that is what we have for today. Do me a favor, please like this video, share it with somebody who hasn't seen it yet. What do we got? Vinny? Rayaka Jorge Turchi is on Saturday, so is Dubra Brian. Oh, yes. Better Beef 2. Better Beef versus Joe Smith. Yes, man. Yeah, man. We got some great fights coming up in boxing. Better Beef is at that light heavyweight pound division. He is the number one guy. The second person is Dimitri Bivol, the guy that just beat Canelo. So that should be interesting. So if Better Beef gets through this fight with Joe Smith, I'm assuming him and Dimitri Bivol are gonna get it on. Unless Bivol wants Bivol's looking at Canelo like, yo, what up? We can do this or what? We can do this again. I can get a nice big paycheck and beat another the guy who is on a pound for pound list. So Bivol is in a good place right now. Yeah, Bivol's in a good place right now. Better Beef is one of those guys that people don't talk about, but he's a quiet monster. I don't think he's on social media, barely speaks English. He just goes to work, gets in the ring, and seeks and destroys. That's what Better Beef is. But yeah, so there you have it. The scorecard, once again, thank you very much for tuning in. Please tell a friend to tell a friend. Don't forget to like it, share, subscribe. This afternoon, we will have the knockout of the week. with my boy Mike Orr at 4. A couple of big knockouts this weekend. I'm not sure which one he's going to pick, but I know there was a couple of big ones. So stay tuned. Yeah. Cedric Sports. Hit me up on any social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that, at Cedric Sports. All right. I'll see you guys next week. Actually, my bad. I'll see you this afternoon. All right. Peace.